A geologist is looking through his camera at a mountain. In 2 seconds, that mountain will not exist anymore. He doesn't know that yet. He's just here to take measurements. So is the man flying the plane he's sitting in. So is his wife, sitting behind him. In the next 90 seconds, they will watch the largest landslide ever recorded in human history happen directly beneath their aircraft, and then they will have to outrun what comes after it. This is how Keith and Dorothy Stoffel survived the day Mount St. Helens tore itself apart. Southwest Washington State, spring 1980. Mount St. Helens, 9,677 feet, a near-perfect cone, nicknamed the Fuji of America for its symmetry. For 2 months it had been groaning, steam eruptions, thousands of small earthquakes, and something stranger, the entire north face of the mountain had begun to swell. Not crack, swell, like a blister. By mid-May, that bulge had grown outward at over 5 feet per day. Geologists gave it a name, the cryptodome, a new mass of magma pushing up from inside with nowhere to go but out. USGS volcanologist David Johnston had been monitoring it from a ridge 6 miles north, camped in a trailer, for weeks. His conclusion was blunt. The bulge was unstable, and when it failed, it would fail catastrophically. He argued for keeping the danger zone locked down. He got partial cooperation. Roadblocks went up. A red zone was drawn on the map. The warning was real. The mountain had been broadcasting it for 2 months. 8:32 a.m., May 18th, Sunday morning. Clear skies, a rarity for that spring. 2 geologists, Keith and Dorothy Stoffel, are in a small Cessna, circling the summit crater at around 12,000 feet, photographing the bulge for a routine survey. They are close enough to see individual cracks in the ice on the crater floor, close enough that Keith would later describe looking almost straight down into the mouth of the thing that was about to detach itself from the mountain. At 8:32 and 17 seconds, 150 miles south in Portland, seismographs register a spike, a magnitude 5.1 earthquake centered directly beneath the volcano's north flanks. From the plane, the Stoffels watch the entire summit begin to ripple, not shake, ripple, like a sheet being pulled out from under something. Then the whole north face, the bulge that had been growing for 2 months, simply lets go. 380 million cubic yards of rock, ice, and forest peel away from the mountain in one motion. It is, to this day, the largest landslide ever recorded on Earth. 3 separate slabs of the mountainside are now sliding downhill at over 150 miles an hour, burying the valley below under an avalanche of debris up to 600 feet deep in places. Keith Stoffel would later say it looked like the mountain was simply sliding away from itself. But the landslide wasn't the disaster, it was the trigger. For months, that cryptodome of magma had been sealed under enormous pressure, held in by the solid rock of the north face, the way a cork holds pressure inside a shaken bottle. The landslide had just ripped the cork straight out. The instant that flank failed, the pressure containing the magma column vanished. And what had been trapped underground did what any violently depressurized gas-charged system does. It came out sideways, not upward, out the top like a textbook volcano. Sideways, directly through the scar the landslide had just torn open in the north face. From the cockpit, the Stoffels watch a black wall of superheated gas, ash, and pulverized rock erupt horizontally out of the mountainside beneath them. Not rising, expanding. Within seconds, it is moving outward at over 300 miles an hour, hugging the terrain, flattening everything in its path. Temperatures inside the cloud, over 660 degrees Fahrenheit. In under 3 minutes, it will flatten 230 square miles of old-growth forest. Mature Douglas firs, some over 5 feet thick, snapped and laid flat in the same direction, like blades of grass under a foot. David Johnston, watching from his ridge 6 miles out, has just enough time to key his radio. "Vancouver! Vancouver! This is it!" He is never heard from again. His body was never found. Inside the Cessna, pilot Bruce Judson realizes the cloud is expanding toward them faster than the plane can simply climb away from it. His only option is counterintuitive and terrifying. Point the nose down and dive, trading altitude for speed, using gravity itself as an engine, to build enough velocity to outrun a shock wave that is chasing them through open sky. Keith Stoffel would later describe the sensation as diving directly toward the thing that was trying to kill them, because it was the only direction that generated enough speed to escape it. The plane levels out low, engines screaming, and peels away to the south. Behind them, the ash column is now rocketing upward. It will reach 80,000 feet within minutes, turning day into night across 3 states. Not everyone watching that morning had an engine and a runway. 7 miles from the summit, freelance photographer Robert Landsberg had spent weeks documenting the mountain's swelling flank, camping near it night after night for exactly this shot. When the blast came, Landsberg had no plane, no dive, no way out. He seems to have understood that within seconds. Instead of running, he kept shooting, photographing the wall of ash closing in until there was no more time left to use the camera. Then he rewound the film into its canister, packed the camera into his backpack, and lay down on top of it, using his own body as the last piece of protection the film would ever get. The pyroclastic flow reached him moments later. It took search crews 17 days to find him, still beside his car, the backpack still underneath him. The film inside had survived, scorched at the edges but intact. Those images, developed after his death, became some of the only photographic records of the blast at close range, later published in National Geographic. Landsberg didn't outrun the volcano. He made sure it wouldn't erase the evidence of what it did. 57 people died that morning. Loggers outside the official danger boundary were killed by a blast that reached far beyond anyone's predicted radius. Campers along the Toutle River were buried under lahars, mud flows moving at highway speed, born when the blast melted glacial ice on the mountain's flanks. Those flows destroyed 27 bridges and nearly 200 homes. David Johnston's body was never recovered. Search teams found nothing that spring and nothing for 13 years after. It wasn't until 1993, when highway crews were grading a new road, that they struck the crushed remains of his trailer, buried 4 feet down. Johnston himself was never found. Mount St. Helens lost 1,300 feet off its summit, reshaped into a horseshoe crater. The landslide and blast reduced the mountain's volume by roughly a cubic mile of material. Ash fell as far as Minnesota, over 900 miles away, and circled the globe within 2 weeks. Keith and Dorothy Stoffel didn't survive because they ran from the volcano. They survived because they were close enough to see exactly what it was doing and fast enough to react to information almost no one else on the ground that morning had. David Johnston died holding the same information, with no engine and no way out. Robert Landsberg died even closer, with only a camera and a choice about his last 30 seconds. Distance never decided who lived that day. Timing did. The warning had been broadcast for 2 months. Some people had 2 minutes to act on it. Some had none at all.